Welcome, everyone. I am Reverend Wendy Silvers, and this is a very special show called Courage to Change, which is the willingness to live along spiritual lines in your life. And I am thrilled to bring to you this very special guest, Tommy Rosen, whom some of you may know from if you're in the recovery movement or you're in the transformational movement. I've known about him for years and years. He is the founder of Recovery 2.0, which is a global organization dedicated to inspire and unite people in recovery from addiction through the practice of yoga and meditation so that they can heal and thrive. His work in the recovery world has extended to the training of coaches worldwide. Recovery meetings open to anyone in any addiction in any time zones, and immersive retreats around the world for years. I mean, it's groundbreaking work. And it's beautiful. Over the past decade, the Recovery 2.0 community has grown to hundreds of thousands of followers, listeners, and members in recovery from all forms of addiction in all corners of the world. He also, I want you to know this so that you can tune in. He's also the host of the In the Circle podcast, number 6 in the mental health category on Apple Podcasts, offering insights and inspiration to those on a path of discovery and recovery. And Tommy's book, Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life on Hay House, was published to international acclaim and continues to transform the lives of readers across the globe today. So you are in the midst of a very beautiful soul. And help me welcome Tommy.
Well, Reverend Wendy, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so grateful to have this chance to speak with you today.
Me too. I love the work that you do because I myself have been in the recovery movement for 37, almost 38 years. And what I appreciate so much is the opportunity to move beyond disease
Hmm.
and into thriving,
Mhm.
right? And how did you come to this work that you do?
Hmm. Well, I would say I come to this work the honest way, which means I struggled a lot in my life around the topic, around the experience of addiction. And with addiction, I'm speaking about that underlying sense of something being wrong and a maladaptive tendency to try to fix that sense of something being wrong. In other words, using uh, relatively destructive and low-grade methods of dealing with the challenges of life, ending up in that frequency of addiction, that energy, that force field of addiction, and then thankfully moving onto this path of spirit, this path of healing, this path of love, and beginning to go down this road of discovery, what we call the path of discovery in Recovery 2.0, and beginning to grow up and beginning to wake up
Mhm.
and to connect and to have this fruitful and amazing, unbelievable, beyond words existence,
Yeah.
which is available to everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I come to it because I was suffering and I needed a solution to my suffering. And a lot of people, wise teachers, wise counsel, spirit, guided me forward along this path, and the path has unfolded into new challenges and new victories, and some failures and some successes, and more challenges, and and life, the human condition.
Mhm.
And so that's the short answer, really, of how I come to do the work that I'm doing. Is I don't like to suffer.
Mhm.
In my heart of hearts, I know there's a way through suffering.
Mhm.
I know that suffering and pain have something to teach us.
Yes.
And so just adopting that orientation of I am going to face life in such a way that I feel it's happening as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to look at everything as a joy, and I'm going to look at everything as a blessing, even if it's unpleasant. I know enough to know that eventually I can come to see the lesson in all of my challenge as well, and so can everybody else.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful. I really appreciate what you're saying, especially to look for the gift, right? Michael Beckwith says the blessing in the mess. And for me, the spiritual awakening, it's not a one and done, right? So you came to believe, you came to, like, you have this process, and you're open at the top where you continue to unfold. I know that you are a master Kundalini teacher, and Yogi Bhajan, I know in some circles there's derision. I'm speaking about the teachings and the experience of Kundalini. There's something for me when I have a Kundalini practice that absolutely reorders my nervous system. Do you, as a teacher, what has been your shake? Yes, you too,
Yes.
right? I mean,
yeah, so there's a few different words that we can use to describe, I think, what you are touching on here. Kundalini, that word has a very, very deep and long history, long before our modern era. So this is a word and a concept that goes back really to the roots of yoga, to the roots of what I would refer to as Tantra. Tantra just mean the expansion of the heart into all things. That effort is Tantra. And that word Kundalini really, it really just represents the tendency toward evolution and towards the realization of possibility. So when we're in a practice of, say, Kundalini yoga, by definition, that yoga must be leading you along an evolutionary path. That's to say, I'm changing in a positive way by engaging in these practices, by adopting these principles and routines into my life. It's an orientation. So Kundalini, nothing more than, you could look at it as your potential. Another word is Kriya. Kriya is a beautiful Sanskrit word, which in the most basic definition might be action. A more expanded definition of that would be evolutionary action. An action that you take which leads you towards evolution, towards growing. So Kriya is a part of, and what we do in the practice of yoga is we do these Kriyas. And the Kriyas are very heavily influenced by the breath, movement, focus of the mind, so visualization, mantra, chanting of sacred sound. All of it. We bring all of it in, and there's a full mind, body, spirit experience when we're doing a Kriya. You feel it immediately. You couldn't not feel it. There's nobody who does a strenuous Kriya who doesn't feel that alteration of consciousness, that expanded sense of self, that reconnection to what is real and what is true and authentic. So there's Kundalini, that potential, that awakening potential. There's Kriya, the action we take to move into evolution. And then finally there's Kundalini, Kriya, and then Prana. And Prana is another beautiful Sanskrit word meaning life force. So what we're doing through these practices is we are expanding, cultivating, building upon our life force, directing that life force in the body and beyond. and stabilizing that life force. And in the practices, the Kriya practices of Kundalini Yoga, we're working with prana, that life force. We're activating ourselves. We're unlocking energy and potential. Why should we do that? Because it's very difficult to be successful in the world of matter, time and space, if you don't have energy. And so we unlock life force energy, direct it, stabilize it, and then we go from there. We go from there. We show up in the world in a more empowered, more energized, more clear thinking, calmer kind of way.
I already feel my nervous system settling as you're speaking.
That's great.
Because it really is an experience. And do you still have do you get up in the ambrosial hours and do your sadhana?
So when you speak about the ambrosial hours, for those who are listening, in my interpretation of that is between 3:30 and 6 a.m., primarily just before the sun comes up, wherever you happen to be on the earth. So a lot of the time I do, and sometimes I up a little bit later than that. Maybe sometimes I'm up at 5:30 or 6.
Yeah.
Practicing right in there. Sometimes I'll get into a practice for a while where I'm going to get up earlier, 3:34, 4:30. But I'm not rigid with that.
Yeah.
What is important to me is establishing a presence and a steadiness within me, this relationship with me and spirit, so that I can operate from that place. So I'm interested in that very, very much, especially as a person on a path of recovery, meaning recovering my true self, my true identity. You said a moment ago, you appreciated the work I'm doing, and because you like this concept of moving beyond disease. And not only is that possible, but that's likely if you bring certain practices and opportunities into your life. You start to orient a certain way. You're orienting towards this possibility of reuniting with yourself.
Yeah.
And when you do that, things start to get good. You start to feel really good. It's not that you don't have challenge. Of course, it's challenging to be human. Period.
Yeah.
And you know that in your work. There's no way around this body and the challenges of ego and the mind and relationship and the struggles we experience in the external world.
Yeah.
So that's all part of it, and that's wonderful. We've just agreed to approach all of that in a more and more conscious way.
Yes.
And when we find difficulty, we look at it. Oh, this is painful for me. This is hard for me. I'm struggling in this relationship, or I'm struggling with food, or I'm struggling in my body in some way, or I'm struggling with career and abundance and creativity, or I'm struggling in grief or loss. I feel people have say to me all the time, one of the biggest challenges people are facing right now is that I feel disconnected from my own life. I have hopes and dreams, but I don't know how to realize those hopes and dreams, and the frustration of that, and how hard that is. So these things are going on for all of us.
Yeah.
And there are tools to help us.
Yes. Yes. So I really appreciate how you speak to addiction as any process, and unhealthy, my words. I talk a lot with my clients and with people about anything that involves a very unhealthy dependence and relationship with a process, a substance, beliefs can be determined. I mean, because be like an alcoholic and an addict gets to self-determine. It's about determining it. And I find that the denial of our societal mores. And the wealthier a person is, the more intelligent a person is, the more the buffers are to surrender.
Hmm.
Have you experienced that?
Well, that's a really interesting thing you just said. Money is one of the things that we can turn to hide from ourselves a little bit longer. So it makes sense that the more money you have, the more tools at your disposal to hide, the longer you can hide.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in pain, but you don't want to really look at the cause of that pain, you can always just check into a 5-star hotel. You can have go on a trip somewhere and avoid a little while longer.
Yeah.
When people are trying to get sober, money can be an unbelievable hindrance.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to get sober, meaning change your life.
Yeah.
When you have money at your disposal, which allows you to continue with a little bit less, immediate suffering,
Yeah.
but eventually that suffering will catch up to anybody, no matter how much money they have. And of course, we all know that because we've seen so many examples in society of wealthy people who have struggled so badly, many of whom have committed suicide and decided, I just, with all this money, it doesn't matter. I can't find a way to be comfortable in this world.
Yeah.
So we know that money's not the solution.
Mm-mm.
Something about this idea of drugs and alcohol. People, if I said to you or anybody listening, what do you think an alcoholic's problem is? Most people are going to say, alcohol, Tommy. And I can assure you that while that has become a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and that problem needs to be removed,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the core problem.
Agreed.
And at some point that became, in fact, a solution to the core problem, albeit not a very good solution.
Right.
So then this is really a revolutionary line of thinking for some people. Because if alcohol is not the problem for an alcoholic, heroin is not the problem for an opiate addict, cocaine's not the problem for a cocaine addict, sex is not the problem for a sex addict, codependency is not the problem for a relationship addict, what's the problem here? And it's a much, much more empowering question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because it starts to bring us all together under the same roof. Because everybody happens to have this problem, and not everybody is always treating it with the same level of addiction or at least external addiction that you might see in somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, let's say the problem is abandonment of oneself. That at some point along the way, we lost ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
our essence, our true self. And in having lost ourselves, we began to externalize a search. So we're looking into the outside world to find the thing that can bring comfort here.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that could actually bring comfort is to reunite with oneself.
Yes.
But we're now in this habit,
Mm-hmm.
this addictive habit, never mind where you end up on what substance or behavior, but we're in the addictive habit of externalizing our search
Mm-hmm.
for a solution to this problem. The problem of anxiety or depression or lack of creativity or frustration or anger or sadness or grief, whatever it is, loneliness. We look in the outside world to solve that problem. And we think we found it. We found money, we found relationships, we found love, at least temporary. We found adventure and certain kinds of experiences, and that's okay. That's all great. But at the end of it, we found we were no closer to ourselves than we were before we searched for those things.
Mhm.
And then somebody comes along one day because we're suffering so badly, and they say, "Hey, would you like to look in the right place for the solution to the problem that you've been trying to solve for a very long time?" And you would, of course, say, "Yes, I would like to find the right place to look. Where is that?" And that person would say, "Turn your gaze inward.
Yeah.
Turn your gaze inward." And we'll start to do this process of reuniting. That's recovery from all addiction. And I believe that that is the solution to the spiritual longing that we have as well.
Yes.
And in that reuniting with self, we're also reuniting with God, reuniting with spirit, or whatever your term for that might be.
Yes.
Higher power, or reuniting with the energy of the divine mother, whatever that conception is of the energy that, for example, is beating your heart right now, or that how the sun shines, how the earth spins, how we all somehow don't fly off the earth while it's spinning. Whatever that power is, it's flowing through us too. And so when we reunite, truly reunite with our authentic self, then that longing to connect at the deeper level is also satisfied, I believe. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about recovery.
So potent. Just have to take a breath. It's the truth. It's coming home to oneself. And I have such awe for the miracles that happen when one steps upon that path and says, yes, yes, this too I shall have. And I've often referred to addictions as a love disorder,
Mm.
the biggest love that there is, disorder. And I was listening to your interview and with Bruce Lipton, who's so incredible, the two of you together. It was like, oh, it's just,
I love him so much.
yeah. Well, listening to you, and he said something that was so remarkable to me, because I've said this to parents and to people that are working on reparenting themselves. He talked about, and I'm paraphrasing, he talked about the that as organisms, we're always trying to do the very best we can to take care of our needs. And I've often said that children and adults are doing the very best they can with what they have to meet their basic needs. And when those basic needs aren't met, there's the externalizing. There's the person is the solution. There's the sex that's the solution. There's busyness, being really, really busy, always busy. I'm so busy. How are you? I'm so busy. There's food, there's alcohol, there's TV, there's shopping. And it's so fascinating to me, because there's this stigma about surrender and asking, I need help. I can't do this alone. I want more out of life than what I'm experiencing. Or conversely, I got this. I got this. I can handle this. It's not out of control.
Three of the most dangerous words in recovery. I got this. Really trouble. When a sponsee says that to me, I'm like, oh man. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yes. We are in a period right now where I believe we are hopefully awakening to a new understanding of addiction and recovery.
Yeah.
what's possible, what to shoot for. I love it too when people find abstinence and say, this is a blessing.
Yeah.
I recognize how important this is, and I'm now ready to go the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because abstinence for abstinence sake ultimately becomes empty,
Mm-hmm.
vacuous.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need the next thing, which comes from that I'm no longer intoxicating myself. I'm not doing that anymore. Now there's something more that can come.
Mm.
I can experience the full bloom of this life, meaning the fullest connection with love. I can become love.
Yes.
I'm no longer looking for the love that I didn't have
Mm.
or don't have. I'm becoming that love.
Yes.
And that changes the game. It changes everything.
Yes.
And, you know, for people to awaken to that possibility for themselves very often does require that first stage of recovery, which is to find abstinence from intoxicating ourselves,
Yes.
to no longer be on that. You know, I speak to a lot of people these days who drink, for example, drink alcohol, and maybe they don't drink in such a way that they would consider a problem, or they certainly wouldn't consider themselves alcoholic or addicted to alcohol. But when I ask them why they drink, many of them say, you know, I actually would like to let it go completely, but I don't. But I want to.
Right.
And their life isn't imploding. They're very active in the world. They're reasonably healthy people. But for some reason, there's this thing inside them that says, you know, stop this, or put this down and see what's on the other side of it. And it's been hard for them to do it. And when I ask them, what's the main thing you are concerned about in giving up alcohol? They'll almost always say, it's about fitting in with my social circle. It's about my wife, my husband, my partner who drinks. It's about the memories we have of drinking together.
Right.
And me not wanting to change that or upset that balance, that thing that we do together, which we identify with love. And so really what they're saying is I don't want to be lonely.
Yes.
I don't want to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose these feelings that I have, which are associated primarily with memory. And that's when you know that person is not present.
Yes.
And I don't mean that as a judgment, as a put down. I mean it as an observation, because it could be one of the most important observations of your life if you catch it.
Yes.
I'm not being present. I'm in a relationship where a part of this relationship is based upon drinking.
Yes.
And I remember that used to be fun. But there's a part of me that doesn't want to continue this. But I sort of push that part of me aside in the name of maintaining this relationship and the memory of what once was.
Right.
And that's called not being present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's painful to do that, by the way. We all know that. It's so painful. And so I will sometimes, if it's appropriate, if someone asks me, I'll point it out and say, look, there's a part of you, the loving part of you wants to be closer to you. And to cultivate that relationship with yourself is going to make all the relationships in your life more powerful, more truthful, more authentic, more loving. And so it's interesting, these mind twists that we get into and reasons why we continue behaviors, even if they're not like what we've seen as like terrible addiction.
Yes.
It's
yes. The elevator doesn't go that low.
right.
Right.
But the minute somebody has a doubt, that's when I'm really interested in connecting with that person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're 100% sure that you want to be drinking, you're not going to be interested in what I have to say.
Right.
And we probably won't be attracted to one another. I'll understand that that's where you're at. If you're 100% sure you want to smoke cannabis or smoke cigarettes, it's not, maybe that's right for you at this particular moment in your life.
Right.
You know, for me, it would be difficult to imagine me where I am being in the shoes of, or in the consciousness of that. Like, I want to drink today. I want to smoke today. Why would I want to do that? I've forgotten the reasons why I used to want to do that.
Right.
I have to sort of really go back into memory and be like, because I wasn't feeling like fantastic and sort of liberated, and I wasn't feeling like me.
Yeah.
So yeah, some things to think about there.
Brilliant. I want to talk to you for hours, because I think of the psychic change that happens when people, myself included, work the steps, do an inventory, a really thorough inventory, and make amends, and then carry the message like you're doing with the work that you do. I think about the power of a psychic change that doesn't happen from just abstinence.
That's, yes. So I look at it as a deepening,
Mm-hmm.
just layers after layers after layers after layers. I make so many mistakes all the time. All the time. I catch myself in egoic ways of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
or caught in an old story,
Yeah.
or behaving in a way that ultimately isn't of ultimate benefit to me,
Mm-hmm.
or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I make these mistakes, and I do my best to catch it and write it, and get back on track, and learn whatever that little lesson had to offer. And so there are these never ceasing opportunities to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
And for me, it has not been quick. It's not been quick. It's been a process that has been unfolding for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I imagine it will. I don't think there's a there. I don't think I'm going to get there and then say, "Oh, I'm there now. I'm here now."
Right.
And I'll just stay here no matter what happens. And as long as I'm in this body, it's an opportunity to learn everything that this life can teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And that means joy and challenge.
Yeah.
We say a prayer at the end of all of our Recovery 2.0 events, and we say, put us in the places you want us to be, with the people you want us to be with, doing the things you want us to do. Thank you for the joys and challenges of our lives. And we try and reinforce for ourselves each day, multiple times a day. Thank you. I'm in gratitude for the joys and the challenges of this life. It's normal. It's not an aberration. There's nothing wrong with you because you experience hardship, grief, sadness. There's nothing wrong with you that you have been to maybe some of those places more than once. Nothing wrong at all. It's part of the human condition, and it is really, I believe, the kindness and the love of Spirit offering something for our growth.
Yeah.
So that when we drop this body, the consciousness that we've developed, which continues, is really, really robust consciousness to plug back into the totality. That's how it occurs to me. So I think there's so many layers and so many levels. There's detox after detox after detox. There's this constant movement from the grosser aspects of life down to the subtle. And cultivating that relationship with the subtle is really a big part of recovery also.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much for imparting that wisdom. I want to honor your time, and I really would love to have a conversation about politics and spirituality. Would you be willing to come back again and have a conversation about that?
Sure. That's obviously that's not a short conversation.
Exactly. Well, that we can have the follow-up.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I'd be delighted to have that conversation.
I feel like it's so important, especially in the times that we are in right now. And there's a quote from Jimi Hendrix that is just the guiding force in my life. When the power of love is greater than the love of power, there will be peace. And I feel as though you and your work, me with my work, the work of those people we know and appreciate, is to bring forth peace so that not only ourselves, but our children and the next 7 generations have an opportunity to jump off our consciousness and live in a world where there's freedom and beauty and choices, clean air, clean food, clean soil, clean minds.
Yes.
I feel like that's our charge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much.
Reverend Wendy, I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your work in the world. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you. And may it continue. And may we all, continue to recognize the divine unfolding in our lives and be at peace.
Thank you. I receive and I say back to you, God bless you. Thank you for answering the call on your soul to be this representation of life unfolding in beauty and wisdom and humanity, uplifting humanity at the very, the very depths of their being with the work that you continue to do. Will you tell people how they can reach you?
Sure. Well, a few things. Our organization is called Recovery 2.0. There's a book by that same name. Our podcast is In the Circle with Tommy Rosen. Each week we release a new episode, and it's been very, very well received and very powerful for people. I offer destination retreats around the world, all over from India to Costa Rica, Canada, Europe, even the US. So if you can get in the room with us, come and be with us somewhere.
Yes.
And finally, for yoga teachers and people who have a serious practice of yoga, we offer a coach training program. So we feel that yoga teachers and serious students of yoga are uniquely suited to help people in recovery. And so we have a recovery coach training for those groups of people.
Beautiful.
And our next one is coming up October 7th near Santa Cruz at Mount Madonna Center. So if that calls to you, please come and train with us.
Thank you.
Those are the things.
Thank you so much. And that will all be in the liner notes. So you have to read the liner notes. And thank you so much for being here today. And thank you all for tuning in. There's so much more goodness available to you. We will make sure that you know how to have that And remember, you are powerful beyond measure, loved beyond description, and a force for good in the world. Go forth and spread your magic. Peace and richest blessings. Bye for now.
Bye for now.